How's it going, folks? Taylor Wachowski here. Today we're going to be talking about pet food, dog food to be specific. We'll be discussing what to feed, how much to feed, how often you should be feeding. Although we'll mainly be focusing on dogs today, it's equally important to do your research for any species of animal you happen to be looking after. Whether it be a cat, a dog, a ferret, a rabbit, a turtle, a gecko, a frog, a horse, or even a cow. Each species has their own particular needs to keep them healthy and nutritionally balanced. And this video is going to be a bit of a long one, so if you're ready for it, sit back, relax, and let's get started. First things first, we need to find out which diet is most biologically appropriate for your pet. Are they carnivore, an herbivore, an obligate, or hypercarnivore, or an omnivore? Here's a quick example of each type of these vores. A carnivore is an organism that mostly eats meat or the flesh of other animals. Sometimes carnivores are called predators. Organisms that carnivores hunt are called prey. An herbivore is an animal anatomically and physiologically adapted to eating plant material, for example, foliage or marine algae, for the main component of its diet. As a result of their plant diet, herbivorous animals typically have mouthparts adapted to rasping or grinding. This will include cows, horses, rabbits, guinea pigs, goats, any of the equines and bovine species. An omnivore is an animal that has the ability to eat and survive on both plant and animal matter. Obtaining energy and nutrients from plant and animal matter, omnivores digest carbohydrates, protein, fat, and fiber and metabolize the nutrients and energy for the sources absorbed. This can include humans, bears, gorillas, squirrels, chimps, and many other species. An obligate or hypercarnivore, meaning meat eater, is an animal whose food and energy requirements derive solely from an animal tissue or meat, whether through hunting or scavenging. This includes lions, tigers, leopards, cats, ferrets. These are all obligate carnivores. Obligate or hypercarnivores cannot digest a high amount of fiber in their diet. In fact, they can become very malnourished and ill if fed a vegetarian or vegan diet, which will ultimately lead to their death. That is why you don't see any vegetarian or vegan cats or ferrets in our households. Now, some of you might already be feeding your dog a vegan or a vegetarian diet, and you might think that they're doing okay. They may seem to be getting along just fine, and you're not wrong entirely. However, such a diet may not kill your dog outright, but they're not going to be thriving. Instead, they'll be surviving, just getting by on the amount of nutrients they can squeeze out of that vegan and vegetarian diet. You have the choice of what you put in your body, but your pet does not, nor do they have the option to tell you what they would prefer to eat if given the choice. Now, it's not to say that anyone who follows a vegan or vegetarian diet is a bad owner. Just understand that we are not built the same way as our canine and feline counterparts. So let's put our personal beliefs aside and do what is best for our animals, whether or not they prefer animal protein. Now, there's a lot of controversy out there about whether a dog is a carnivore or an omnivore. I will make this quick claim that dogs are carnivores who have evolved over time to be able to digest a diet high in grains, fiber, and carbohydrates. But remember, this diet isn't necessarily biologically appropriate for them. Go ahead and take a look at your dog's teeth. I'll wait, go ahead. Just make sure you don't get yourself bitten. You should be able to notice that their teeth are sharp and pointed all the way back to the molars. Dogs also have a fairly short intestinal tract. Not that you should be able to see it from inside their mouth. Dogs are built this way because they're meant to take in large chunks of meat without involving a lot of chewing in the process. The short intestinal tract doesn't include a lot of space for fermentation from a high fiber diet. So let's leave the high amounts of chewing and grinding to the cows and horses. Now, I'll admit firsthand that I was quite confused at first with my own dog on whether he was an omnivore or a carnivore. But science doesn't lie, neither do his teeth or his tummy rumbles. So let's move away from this debatable topic and just say dogs are meant to eat meat, but can tolerate a whole assortment of other protein sources. Okay, let's move on to the different types of diets that you will see readily available in your everyday pet store. The most common types of food that you'll see on the market today are kibble, wet food, dehydrated food, processed refrigerated food such as Fresh Pet Select or the Farmer's Dog, and a fully raw diet. You can find pre-made, pre-measured, frozen patties in the freezer section of a lot of your pet stores, or you can have the food delivered right to your door from pet food companies that have dedicated their time to making a balanced and whole and complete, biologically appropriate raw dog food. Okay, right about now, if you're still with me, you might be asking yourself a couple questions. You might be asking, what's the difference? Is there a difference? I thought they were all the same. Yes, there's certainly a difference between a high-end, high-quality pet food and the lower qualities that you will see on the shelves at your grocery stores, Target, and even some feed stores. Now, besides the fancy labels and bright colors, that doesn't mean every bag is created equal. So I'm going to show you how to decipher the nutritional label on the back of the bag. Grab your own bag now or pick one up randomly off the shelf and read the first 5 ingredients. Those are going to be what makes up the bulk of the food. Items to look out for are corn, byproduct meal, bone meal, grains, barley, potatoes, peas, things like that. Grains, starchy vegetables, or unspecified meals are not what you want in your dog's food. That byproduct meal and bone meal can come from sources such as slaughterhouse waste, roadkill, and even recycled, euthanized cats and dogs. Okay, calm down. This doesn't mean that your dog is eating Fluffy from down the street. This is just something to look out for. Let's look at a bag of Origin Regional Red and see what's inside. Then we're going to do a bit of math to see what percentage of this food is actually giving my dog what he needs. The rest of the bag will be full of what we call filler, ingredients your dog doesn't necessarily need besides the odd vitamin and mineral. Now to find out what's in this food, we're going to start with our calculator and put in 100, as in 100% of the bag. Next, we're going to subtract the protein, the fat, the fiber, the moisture, and ash. The number you get is what is left over after all of the nutrition is taken out of the bag. So that larger number that has been taken out of 100 is what your dog is actually eating. The number you have on your calculator now shows what other carbohydrates and sugars and fillers are in your dog's food, aside from the odd 1 or 2% of, again, nutrients and vitamins. Even so, that's still a lot, and in some cases the bag is half full with ingredients your dog does not need. Starchy vegetables, grains, corn syrup, all that turns to sugar, which is not a healthy and well-balanced diet for any animal, especially not when it makes up half of your nutritional value of the day. Ingredients to avoid are corn, vegetable starch, peas, gluten, wheat, and other sources of carbs and grains. I know Blue Buffalo is a very popular brand of dog food because they list deboned chicken as the first ingredient. However, if you keep reading, you'll find whole ground brown rice, whole ground barley, oatmeal, rye, and some other ingredients including natural chicken flavoring. That doesn't sound like a very healthy diet to me. In fact, that looks like an awful lot of grains for a carnivore to be consuming. Remember, grain equals sugar, and sugar equals overweight pets, which could lead to behavioral issues and obviously overall health issues for your pet. And just because a company lists their food as grain-free, it doesn't make it low in carbs. They just replace it with other starchy vegetables, which your dog still doesn't need. In fact, a lot of the articles about veterinarians being worried that grain-free food is killing dogs is not the fact that the grains were keeping the dogs healthy. The grains are equally just as bad, but what was killing the dogs and giving them cardiomyopathy is the starchy vegetables we replaced it with. Dogs are not meant to eat high fiber or peas and tapioca and sweet potatoes and potatoes. They're not meant to eat that. Even beans as a protein. That is hurting the dogs just as much as the grains, but with the grain-free diet and the new starchy vegetables, that is actually killing dogs quicker. So let's reiterate. Starchy vegetables are not good for dogs, and neither are grains. Now I understand that feeding your dog any other type of diet can be confusing, inconvenient, and even time-consuming. But trust me, the health benefits that come from a balanced, complete, biologically appropriate diet for your cat or dog is above and beyond. The pros will far outweigh the cons. Even Science-Diet, a food created by vets who has been scientifically formulated to be the best nutrition for your dog, based on sensitive skin, stomach, coat, kidneys, you name it, is not a safe bet for feeding your pet. Go ahead and look at the back of the ingredients. Add them up and you'll see what is in that food, what's really in that food. I know I'm going to make a lot of vets frown out there. I'm going to make them really mad. This is nothing against them. I am simply just showing what I have done research on. I have fed my dog this when I thought he needed it. I have fed him expensive, overpriced cornflakes, essentially, which is what Science-Diet is. Do proper research for your animal. If they're having issues, it may be because of a protein source, it may be because of grains, it may be because of something else in the food. But if you are going to feed a kibble diet, I highly recommend Origin or Acana. They have great reviews and excellent ingredients. And if you're not worried about spending a pretty penny, then I recommend Ziwi, a brilliant company with great reviews, great ingredients, and no, I'm not sponsored in any of this. They don't know I exist. I am just showing you what I have found to be the best nutrition in the market as far as kibble goes and processed foods. If you don't believe me, go ahead and check out the ingredients yourself. This bag of Origin Tundra includes venison, ground with bone, duck, also ground with bone, whole steelhead trout, bison ground with bone, elk ground with bone, quail ground with bone, duck liver, duck heart, spinach greens, pea fiber, bison tripe, elk liver, elk heart, and kidney, and you get the point. This product sounds 1,000 times better than any of the other overpriced products I've seen. Now you may not be able to find some of these labels at your big box pet stores, so look for your local smaller pet stores, family owned, local owned, or try shopping online. Okay, enough about kibble. Let's move on to the refrigerated section of the pet store where you can find those processed tubes of meat. When I say processed, I mean that because that's what it is. The food is cooked, prepared, and packaged in a factory and sent out to the pet stores all over the country. That's not necessarily a bad thing, especially when you compare it to the dehydrated, denutritionalized kibble that is far more processed than this. If I were to pick one or the other, I would definitely go for the processed meat tubes in the refrigerator section over kibble any day. This is because your pet will be able to absorb a lot more moisture. The food is somewhat fresher, where if you leave it out, it can mold. So there's bacteria that can come into it. Versus kibble, you leave it out, it gets stale. It's pretty much fine forever. That's a lot of bonus. Some of the popular brands you may come across are Stella and Chewy, Darwin's Pet, and the Farmer's Dog, just to name a few. In fact, all of these options happen to ship the food right to your door. And again, no, this is not sponsored. I'm just trying to throw this info out at you so it makes it easier for you to maybe make the switch to give your dog a better diet and possibly a better life. Now let's finally move on to the raw diet for cats and dogs, and just about any other carnivore you may own as a pet. Now when it comes to raw diet, there are a few different variances. PMR, which is prey model raw diet, which is whole prey model raw feeding. BARF, biologically appropriate raw food, and Franken prey feeding, to name a few. Once you decide which diet is best for you and your pet, you can choose whether to buy the pre-made frozen patties in the freezer section of your pet store or order them from online, or you can learn to make it yourself. Now, word of the wise to anyone who plans to make their own raw pet food at home. Do lots and lots of research. I cannot seriously stress enough how important it is to have a properly balanced diet for your pet. As stated by Dr. Karen Becker, a holistic veterinarian and animal nutritionist, a kibble diet is safer and far better for your pet than an unbalanced raw diet. The reason being that, although the kibble is dry, high in carbs and sugar, and can sit on the counter for months without the need of refrigeration, it won't cause organ failure in your pet. At least not right away. If you just give your dog a chicken quarter, maybe throw in some veggies in there, roll it in some oat flakes, and call it a day, your dog or cat will quickly deteriorate because it's not meeting all their biological, nutritional needs. Now sure, there's meat and bone in there, but dogs and cats need much more than that. They need organs such as kidney and spleen, which provide essential minerals and water-soluble vitamins. Liver is also incredibly important in a carnivore's diet, more so than steamed veggies, because the liver is an organ that provides essential fat-soluble vitamin A and other water-soluble vitamins. Without these ingredients, the animal will begin to suffer from illnesses such as pancreatitis, bladder stones, heart failure, and kidney failure, because the organs aren't getting the proper amount of nutrients, vitamins, and minerals they require to function normally. Did I scare you enough? Alright, don't worry. I promise, this is all the scary news I'm going to share with you. Now I'm going to share some research with you that I've done before starting my own dog's raw diet. When I first started with raw diet with Adonis, I started him with turkey necks. That was what I used for the transitional period of a couple of weeks to get him used to being onto raw meat. After that, I started making his patties myself, following the recipes. After about 2 years, I just started ordering the pre-made frozen patties from Raw Fed Canine, which is a raw food company. You can also check out the company We Feed Raw. They used to be called Real Raw, but they changed the name. Either one has really great products, and you can put in your dog's info about their size, the age, activity level, and you can kind of get a calculator of how much you should be feeding your dog. They are totally balanced and complete meals. Now, what it costs to feed Adonis in his meat is probably under $2 a day for his whole meal. I get 30 pounds of meat delivered. That will last us 2.5, 3 months. I order from Raw Fed Canine, and I get 30 pounds of meat, which comes into 2 packages, 15 pounds each. You can get all sorts of different protein sources. They have ground bone in them. They have no bone in them. You can get lots of cool little treats. I get him anything that doesn't have chicken in it. He is highly allergic, done that. I rotate the protein sources so that he doesn't get used to having just one. He doesn't, get bored with the flavor. Each patty is about 9 ounces, a little over half of a pound, and Adonis gets half of those per day. I also give him Ziwi as a little snack in between, in case he gets a little extra hungry. During the winter months when he's a little bit colder, he needs a little bit more food in him to grow out that thick coat. Don't mind Hermes in the background. Hermes is having a great time in the background. For the 2 boxes, if you get beef for both of them, you can have beef, chicken, pork, I think they have bison, they have salmon, they might have venison, all sorts of things, and the prices go up according to the protein source. If you go with beef, like last time I did, it's like $115, and there's free shipping on any of their orders. So that lasts us a good while. Just make sure that you have room in your freezer. I take each of the patties out when I get them, put each patty into a Ziploc baggie, and that patty will last us 2 days. Pop it in the fridge, let it defrost, cut it up, do what you gotta do. You can use it as a topper or as a full meal. If you use it as a topper, it'll last you even longer, depending on the size of dog you have to feed. Now again, We Feed Raw is also a really good company. Eat It Shop will sell raw meaty bones, as well as a lot of other pet stores and pet boutiques. The raw meaty bones are really coming into popularity now, which is good. They're a great source for cleaning your dog's teeth, getting the plaque off, so you don't have to take them in, put them under sedation to get their teeth cleaned. If Adonis starts having plaque building up on his teeth, I like to get him a beef bone or a beef rib. You can get him a knuckle, chicken wings, raw chicken wings, anything that's raw. When you cook it, that's when it becomes dangerous, because the bone becomes dried out, brittle. When they're raw, they're soft. They're actually very soft and spongy and good source of calcium for your dog, and they're really good for dogs that really chew. If they take in big chunks, of course, it's always a risk for choking. So you have to really know your dog and get them an appropriate sized bone to be able to chew on, and always supervise them. As far as raw meaty bones go, make sure you do not get anything that's very heavy and weight bearing. Don't get femurs or big, heavy bones. They are too strong. They are not very soft. Your dog can really chew in them and break and crack a tooth. We don't want that. Same goes for those giant cooked glazed dinosaur bones. If your dog takes a piece off of that, it's cooked, it doesn't digest. There have been cases where dogs have had chunks of this bone in their stomach for years, and it turned into a black sludge. It didn't digest. It can cause compaction. It can cause, cuts in the throat, choking, and the trachea and the intestinal tract. Bad news. So if you're going to feed a bone, make sure it's raw. Make sure it's an appropriate size for your dog. Make sure that it's not super dense and heavy and strong. You want a soft bone for your dog. You can even talk to your butcher about a bunch of raw bones, chicken necks, backs, turkey necks, backs, tails, wings. Now Adonis can't have chicken, he is allergic to it. Trust me, I have tried to reintroduce it to him several times over the years, and every single time he breaks out in itching paws until they bleed, rubbing his face until it bleeds. It's a whole thing. So no chicken for him. So I go to online stores. I get turkey necks, turkey tails, ox tails, bison tails, beef ribs, and a bunch more. The specific store that I use when buying my raw meaty bones online is rawpawspetfood.com. When switching your dog to a raw diet from a kibble diet, it can take a few days for them to get used to it. Remember, it's a transition, it's a process, it's not an event. A lot of dogs wouldn't even know what to do if you just plop down a chunk of raw chicken for them, and that's completely normal. So be patient. The companies I mentioned earlier will help you with a specific diet switching program, where they will send you balanced meals specialized for your specific dog's nutritional needs. Okay, if you're still here, I applaud you. Thank you for sticking with us to the end. I know it's a lot of info all at once, and you don't have to take it in all at once. Look back at this, do research, find 3 different sources that all follow the same kind of idea to support something that you think would be good for your dog. It may take some hunting. If you feel like, well, kibble really isn't good for my dog, but everybody around me, my vets say it's good, my vets show me this, my family shows me this, you still think that kibble isn't good, then do research on other substitutes other than kibble. Don't do it just because it's always been done. If it looks and quacks like a duck, it's probably not a chicken or a squirrel. It's probably a duck. If you don't like it, then switch over. Do what you feel is best for your dog. Of course, don't break the bank for it, but you can easily help your dog by just using a little bit of this as a topper for your dog's meal. Give them a little extra nutrition, a little extra boost. You will notice a huge difference between a dog who is surviving with any source of kibble and thriving on either a better quality kibble, a raw diet, a processed food diet, human grade diet, whatever it is, even if it's fully cooked meat and vegetables, that's fine. Just anything you can do to give your dog the best life possible, as you should be doing for yourself. You don't have to worry about cooking up 5-star meals if you don't want. If you don't like touching the raw food, you can have gloves, you can have processed food, you could have the dehydrated food. Just do your best to give your dog better choices. Animals always do best with choices, just like people. So that does it for me. Thank you very much for watching. I really do appreciate you just hanging out with me during all this time. I hope you learned something. I hope you can teach me something. I've been working on this video for a while, so I hope it was enjoyable. I hope it went smoothly. I hope I didn't completely confuse you. And if I pop up with more questions than answers, then that's not necessarily a bad thing. You know, go and do that research. If you have a question about anything, why do we do this? Look it up. Look up, why do we do this? Is this the only option? Are there other options for this? Remember, in life, there are no absolutes. There's no always or never. There's just options. Some are better than others. Sometimes it's just, at this time, this is what we can do. And at a later time, we can do better. So always learn from it. Listen to your pet. So thanks again for watching. I need to go get my ferret from off of the counter. Hope you all have a good one. Good luck with your pets. And until next time, stay positive.